Let's learn how to play Chinese chess. The first thing we're going to talk about is the board layout. And this is different from Western chess, where there are 64 squares, all perfectly evenly distributed. In Chinese chess, the board has a couple unique features that we're going to talk about. The first is the river, and that's this middle band shown here. And usually it's inscribed with some Chinese characters that say the River of the Chu, or the Han border. And this is a reference to the Chu-Han War that took place in about 200 BCE. So right off the bat, this game is painting a picture for us of an ancient battle between two armies taking place across a river. You've got the Red Army on one side, the Black Army on the other. Both are poised, ready to attack. Now, the river's important for gameplay because some pieces, like the elephants, cannot cross the river. Other pieces, like the soldiers or the pawns, change behavior after they cross the river. So it's not just a decorative element on the board, it actually serves a function in the mechanics of gameplay. The next feature that's also different from Western chess is known as the palace, and that's this box with diagonal lines on each side of the board. And the palace is where the general lives. The general and the advisors both stay in the palace. They can't leave the palace. I like to think of it as that tent from Disney's 1998 animated Mulan movie, where the general sits in the tent and conducts his business from there. And that's how it is in Xiangqi. In Chinese chess, the general stays in the palace and cannot leave. In a lot of Chinese sources, you might also hear this being referred to as the 9 palaces. And that term comes from the fact that there are 9 intersections that make up the palace. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the middle one is 9. So 9 palaces is a common Chinese phrase that's used to refer to the palace. At the beginning of a game, each side starts with 16 pieces for a total of 32 pieces on the board. So without further ado, let's get started in learning how each piece moves. What are the mechanics of each piece, so we can understand how to move them around on the board. And let's start with the general. The general stays, like I said, in the palace only. And he can only move left or right, up or down on the orthogonal lines. So we see that the general cannot move diagonally. He can only move on the perpendicular lines inside of the palace. No exceptions to that. And the general cannot leave the palace. So that's how the general moves. Now let's look at the advisors. The advisors at the beginning of the game, they're situated on either side of the general inside of the palace, and they do kind of the opposite of the general. They move only along the diagonals. They cannot move on the perpendicular lines, diagonals only. And just like the general, they stay inside the palace. They cannot exit the palace at any time during the game. And that's how the advisor moves. Now, pawns or soldiers are kind of like pawns in Western chess. In Xiangqi, there are 5 pawns, and each one is positioned on the pawn row, and their starting positions are usually denoted by this little design here. But in this case, we've got a pawn that's already been moved forward 1 space. And pawns can only move forward. They can never move backwards. And this comes from a feature of ancient Chinese military history where soldiers were instructed to only move forward. They could never retreat. Retreat would be treachery. And so in Xiangqi, soldiers are only allowed to move forward. They can't move backwards. So it's similar to Western chess. But a difference is soldiers move forward 1 step at a time. They can't move forward 2 steps in the beginning like in Western chess. And after they cross the river, they can move left and right. So a pawn that has not crossed the river is not as valuable as one that has crossed the river, because pawns after the river on the opponent's side have more freedom of movement and are more powerful. Now, unlike Western chess, where pawns, when they reach the back rank, they promote, in Chinese chess, pawns do not promote. They just get stuck there on that last file because they cannot retreat, and they can only move left or right. So that's how the pawns move. Now let's look at chariots, also known as rooks in many translated sources, because they move exactly like the rook in Western chess. So chariots in Xiangqi move exactly like rooks in Western chess. They can move any distance on an unobstructed row or file, so perpendicularly. And this actually makes them the most powerful piece in Xiangqi. In Western chess, the queen is the most powerful piece. But in Xiangqi, the rook or the chariot is the most powerful piece. And that's how the chariot moves. All right, and now for one of the most special pieces in Xiangqi. This is a piece that is very unique to this game. It is the cannon. And the cannon moves exactly like a rook. So its moves are not particularly interesting. It moves, again, along the perpendicular lines as far as it wants, exactly like a rook. But as we'll talk about when we get to the capturing methods, cannons capture differently, and that's what makes them unique. So stay tuned for that because that's coming up. And that's how the cannon moves. Now let's look at the elephants. Elephants are, in a way, they're similar to bishops in Western chess, but a difference is that they're a lot more restricted in their movement. So bishops in Western chess are fairly powerful. Elephants are almost entirely a defensive piece. So elephants move exactly 2 spaces diagonally. So 1, 2 spaces diagonally. And they cannot cross the river. So an elephant can never cross the river. That's one of the reasons why this is a defensive piece. Also, elephants can't jump over a piece. So we see this horse here blocking the path of the elephant. That's why there's no green dot showing that we could move 2 spaces. 1, 2. We can't move here because there is a horse in the way. So that means this elephant in this particular configuration can only move to this one spot. And this is the starting location for the elephants. So elephants are a lot of times used to protect the general. General is located here on the 5th file. So it's common in games, you'll see an elephant get moved out here in front of the general as a protective measure. And here again, we see a pawn in the way, so the elephant cannot go 1, 2 spaces this direction. It only has one option if it wants to move. It can move to the 9th file. And that's how the elephant moves. Now let's look at how horses move. And horses are very similar to the knight in Western chess. I like to call it the horse, partially because that's the official term used in the World Xiangqi Federation documents, but also because it points out that there is a slight difference between horses in Xiangqi and knights in Western chess. So a horse moves very similarly to a knight in Western chess. It moves 1 space orthogonal and 1 space diagonal, so making this kind of 45-degree angle move. And a horse that is centrally located on the board, this is just like in Western chess where it's advised that you get your horses into a central location if possible so that they're attacking more spaces. A horse in Xiangqi has 8 possible locations that it can go to when it's out here in the middle like this. And in some Chinese sources, you'll hear it referred to as an octagonal horse, which is referring to the geometry of a horse being able to move to 8 different locations. And we see here that all of the moves are 1 space orthogonal or perpendicular and 1 space diagonal. So 1 space perpendicular, 1 space diagonal. Now, and this is where there's a difference between knights in Western chess and horses in Xiangqi. And that's that horses in Xiangqi can be blocked, where knights in Western chess can jump over a piece, a feature that is maybe a little unrealistic in my mind. I think Xiangqi probably makes it more realistic. Here, horses cannot jump over anything. So we see the orange arrows showing the valid locations that the horse could move to. We notice that the backward motion is not available because there's this advisor sitting in the way. So a piece can block a horse's entire path of motion in one direction if it is sitting right next to the horse, blocking off that perpendicular path. So in this case, the horse can't move backwards, it can only move forwards. And there's nothing special about the river when it comes to horses. Horses do just fine crossing the river. Now in Xiangqi, just like in Western chess, if you want to traverse your horse across the larger distance on the board, you're going to have to calculate the exact path of motion for that horse. So in this case, we want to get to this star, which means we have 2 options if we want to reach this star in 2 moves. We couldn't do any of these because it'd be taking us the wrong direction, but we could pick either of these 2 options up here to reach it to the star. And same thing here. And that's how the horses move in Chinese chess. Now, just like in Western chess, if an opponent's piece is in a place where your piece can reach it, then your piece can capture it. So in this case, our opponent's chariot is within reach of our horse, one space orthogonal, one space diagonal. We can capture that chariot. Pawns that haven't crossed the river yet can only move one space forward. This opponent's horse is right in the way, meaning our pawn can capture it. Our opponent's cannon is sitting on a diagonal corner of the palace, and if they don't move it, our advisor can capture it. Same thing here, our elephant can move two spaces, 1, 2, to reach the horse. Even our general can capture pieces, as long as it's not getting put in check by doing so. So in order to reach this horse, the general could not move left, because that would be putting the general in check from this horse, which would be one space down, one space diagonal, meaning this horse is pointed right at this location on file 5. So to get to the horse, our general needs to move two spaces forward. Now, as I promised, the cannon has a special capture mechanism, and this makes for a very interesting dynamic in the game. The cannon can capture by jumping over another piece, and it captures by jumping over exactly one piece. So if there's two pieces in the way, the cannon cannot jump over it. And the cannon can jump as far as it wants all the way across the board. So in this case, our cannon can jump all the way to the other side of the board because there's one piece in the way. It doesn't matter if it's your piece or the opponent's piece that's in the way, just one piece will do the trick, and the cannon can jump over and attack another piece on the other side. So in this case, even though the cannon moves like a rook, it cannot capture like a rook. So the cannon here is not providing any direct threat to the opponent's general. It's only threatening the horse on the other side of the general. So the cannon can shoot all the way across the general and take out that horse. Cannon's going to shoot both forwards and backwards across the board. So we've moved our cannon all the way to the opponent's side of the board, and we're going to shoot backwards towards our army, but targeting one of their pieces that's made it all the way to our back rank. So there's no limit to what types of pieces the cannon can capture, as long as it jumps over exactly one piece. And sometimes you might need to make that happen. So in this case, if we wanted to capture that horse, we're going to need to position our cannon so that there is one piece in between our cannon and the opponent's horse to make that capture. Same thing here, we want to target that chariot. So let's move our cannon onto file 5 and take a shot at that chariot. So after moving across the river, the pawns or the soldiers can move left and right, and they can capture left and right as well. So if we move our pawn forward one step, it is now attacking the opponent's cannon, and we can take it out. Let's do some more practice. We've got a horse here and a chariot. We've got to try and figure out how can we take out that chariot. And the chariot's location is just out of reach from the horse. So remember, the horse moves one space forward, one space diagonal. So the horse could be targeting this square or this square. It doesn't quite get there to the chariot. So we're going to have to do this in 2 moves. So if we move our horse to the 7th file, then we can take out the chariot on the 5th file. Here's a little bit more maneuvering. We want to take out this horse using our elephant. And the problem is that the elephant's path down here is blocked, meaning we have to go a different direction. So we can't go 1 space, 2 spaces down to the 7th file. We're going to have to advance our elephant forward up here so it has that 1, 2 spaces to attack that horse. Again, advisors move diagonally inside the palace, and they can capture diagonally as well. Advisors cannot move along the perpendicular lines of the palace, only diagonal, and that wins us the chariot. Here's another cannon example, jumping over one piece, exactly one piece, to take out the opponent's chariot. Now in this case, our elephant's path is not blocked, so we don't have to take any longer path to get around to the opponent's horse. We can capture the opponent's horse directly. Here's another example with the general, and I'm going to take the long path around so you can see that this move is valid because the horse is not targeting the general here, so the general doesn't get put in check, and the general can capture sideways as well. Here's another cannon example. In order to target the horse, we need to position the cannon so that there is exactly one piece between our cannon and the horse. In this case, it's this advisor, and we can jump over the advisor to capture the horse. Here's another example of a pawn. Before it's crossed the river, it's going to take 2 steps to get to this horse. Chariots move just like rooks, can capture at any distance across the board, making this an easy win. Now this horse is kind of far away from the opponent's advisor that we're trying to capture, so we've got to calculate its move path. And it's going to take 3 moves to get there. There's actually multiple ways we could get there. We could move to the 4th file and then the 2nd file and then make our attack. We could advance forward to the 3rd file and then the 2nd and then make our attack. So it doesn't matter which way we do it. As long as we get there, that'll complete this puzzle. Another chariot example. Chariots move like rooks. So we're going to position it on the same row as the horse and make our attack. Let's look at another example with the general. And in this case, we've got a cannon that we're trying to capture. And remember, cannons pose no threat if there's not a piece to jump over. So in this case, our general could move directly into the line of fire, so to speak, because there is no line of fire. There's no piece in between the cannon and the general. And our general can move directly next to the opponent's cannon and take it out. All right, so far in this tutorial, we've learned about the board layout, how all of the pieces move, and how they capture. So let's now look at the objective of the game, which is to checkmate the opponent's general. It's just like in Western chess, where you want to produce a checkmate. So let's look at this example. We have the opponent's general on the 5th file. And I should mention, just in case you're getting confused when I'm talking about the file numbers, we'll talk about the notation at the end of this tutorial. But in Xiangqi, the file numbers are actually different between the red side and the black side. So no matter which side you're playing, the files or the vertical lines are numbered from 1 to 9, with 1 always being on your right side. So these are the Chinese characters for the numbers 1 through 9. So because we're looking at this from red's perspective, when I said that the general is on file 6, I'm not referring to these numbers up here. That's for the black side. I'm referring to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this vertical line, file 6. But we'll get to that in more depth later. Now let's look at this position. Currently, the opponent's general is in this corner of the palace, and we have a pawn sitting in the middle. What this means is that the general's movement is restricted. The general can't advance 1 space because our pawn would take it out. So that would be the general putting himself in check, which is an illegal move. Same thing if they move to file 5, because our pawn could advance forward 1 space and take out the general. So their general is currently stuck with 0 options for being able to move. So that means if we move our chariot here, remember chariots move just like rooks, it would be attacking the general, and the general can't escape. That is the definition of checkmate. So let's go ahead and do that. Here's another common configuration with 2 chariots. The chariot that's sitting in the palace is, just like the pawn was before, restricting the general's movement. General cannot move forward or sideways because the chariot would attack it. And because the general's movement is entirely restricted, if we place an attack on the general using this chariot, moving it to file 6, attacking the general, he can't escape. That's checkmate. All right, now let's look at one of the most classic checkmate examples, the double cannon checkmate. If we look at our opponent's general, he currently has only 1 place that he could move. He could move forward 1 space because his advisors, those annoying advisors, are sitting on either side of him. He cannot move left or right. So the double cannon checkmate is special because nothing can block it. Let me explain what I mean. Currently, we have a cannon that's pointed at the general, but it's not placing the general under an attack because there is not a piece for the cannon to jump over and make an attack. So in this case, if we move our 2nd cannon here, then this back cannon has 1 piece, which will be this cannon, that it can jump over and make an attack. and the general could not escape it by moving forward because the cannon can shoot in any distance as long as there's one piece in between. So the general can't move out of the way of this attack. But you might wonder, well, couldn't they just move an advisor in front and then there would be two pieces in between? And that's what makes the double cannon checkmate special and exceedingly powerful. Nothing can block it, because if you move an advisor in front to try and block the attack from the back cannon, that puts one piece between the general and the cannon that is in front. So no matter what, you're going to have either one piece in between the general and the back cannon, or if you tried to block it, one piece between the front cannon and the general. The general cannot escape this, and that's why it is checkmate. So here's another example of checkmating with a cannon. This one's not so obvious. Currently, their general, if they got attacked, could only move one space to the right because of our horse. Horses, again, move one space forward, one space diagonal. So our horse is currently targeting both the front of the palace and the back of the palace. One space forward, one space diagonal back. So if we move our cannon behind the horse, it'll have one piece, the horse, to jump over, attacking the general. The general's only movement option is moving one space to the right, and that does not save it from the cannon. So that ends up being a checkmate. You can also use pawns to deliver checkmates. So like our first example, the pawn in the middle of the palace is restricting the movement of the general. He can't move forward or sideways because our pawn either way would be able to take it out. So if we advance our sixth file pawn one space forward, that produces an attack on the general. He can't capture that pawn because of our central pawn, and he can't escape it because of our central pawn. So that produces a checkmate. Here's an example of delivering a checkmate using a horse. So currently the general is stuck back here behind his advisors, and he can't move out from behind them because of our chariot. So the general is completely stuck in place. So if we place an attack on the general without changing anything else in this configuration, he can't escape that attack because there's no escape path. So in this case, moving our horse to file 7 means that one space forward, one space diagonal, our horse places an attack on the general and he can't escape it. That's checkmate. So that's the basics of checkmating. Now let's look at a particularly interesting rule in Chinese chess. This rule is known as the flying general rule, and it forbids the generals from seeing each other down an unobstructed line of sight or an unobstructed file. So if we move our chariot to the left, you would normally think, oh, well, the general can just sidestep that and move to file 5. But in Xiangqi, that is not allowed because our general is currently on file 5. And after we move our chariot, there will be nothing between the two generals. So in this case, our general actually acts like a rook. And there's an old Chinese story that talks about this. One general saw the other general across the river and shot him with an arrow. The other general ended up dying, and thus the legend of the flying general rule was born. But more importantly, this rule has to do with ancient Chinese military philosophy, which was if there was ever a case that you had an unobstructed line of sight to the other side's general, that's a complete and utter tactical failure. You have not organized your troops very well if there's a clear line of sight that something could come through and attack you. So in Xiangqi, it is not allowed to have an open file between the two generals. So back to our example, if we move our chariot to the left, the general can't escape it by moving forward. That doesn't save it from the attack and cannot move to the side because of the flying general rule. And so that actually produces a checkmate. Here's another example, same thing. Our general is currently protecting the central file. So if we move our cannon to file 6, it has one piece, exactly one piece, to jump over and produce an attack on the general. The general cannot escape, it can't go to the side because of flying general, and moving forward doesn't help. So that also produces a checkmate. So here's another example of a double cannon checkmate. And remember I said the double cannon is super powerful, nothing can block it. Well, that's only true in the case where the general has no escape path or it's blocked, say, by the advisors on either side. So in this case, the general has one spot that is open that it could go to, except for the flying general rule. So we've got our general positioned here, pointing down this file. The opposing general cannot step into that line of sight of our general, meaning that if we move our cannon over to target the general, so it has one piece to jump over, He can't sidestep it. And again, with the double cannon checkmate, it's unblockable, meaning you can't put a piece in front of the general to save it, because even though that cancels out the threat from the back cannon, it produces a new one from the front cannon, which would now have one piece to jump over. So let's go ahead and checkmate the general. So here's a case where the general is completely stuck. He can't move anywhere. He can't move left or right or advance forward because all of his pieces are in the way. And you might think, well, let's just move our horse here because one space forward, one space diagonal, that would be targeting the general. He can't escape that, which is true, but not for the reason you probably think, because that line of reasoning alone forgets that there's an advisor here, which could take out the horse. But we're talking about the flying general rule. And in this case, that advisor, which normally would be able to take out the horse, that advisor is pinned by our general. The opponent can't move their advisor here or here because that would be opening up their general to the direct line of sight to our general. So their advisor is actually pinned. In this case, the general acts very much like a rook. You can actually use your general to pin other pieces to the opponent's general. Of course, you have to watch out because you could also accidentally pin your own pieces. For example, if we had our horse positioned here, they could move their advisor, which would pin our horse. Our horse wouldn't be able to move without exposing our general to the direct line of sight. But in this case, the answer to this checkmate is to move the horse to the palace corner to produce the checkmate. Advisor can't take it out because of the flying general rule. Another example of checkmate with flying general. So currently, the opponent's general cannot move to file 5 because of the direct line of sight to our general. And they can't move one space forward because of our horse. One space forward, one space diagonal, targeting this square. They're actually stuck by the flying general rule and our horse. So if we move our pawn one space to the right, then that's targeting the general, and that produces a checkmate because they cannot escape. And that's checkmates with the flying general. All right, so we've learned the fundamentals of playing Chinese chess. We talked about the layout of the Xiangqi board, the river and the palace. We've discussed how the pieces move, how they capture, and we've looked at multiple basic checkmate strategies, including those using the flying general rule. So to complete our very beginner tutorial for the student level 1 and student level 2 ranks, we're going to learn the notation system that's used in Xiangqi. And I'm going to display on the screen both the traditional Chinese version and the Romanized version so that you can kind of get a sense for both of them. They are the same system, just one uses the Chinese characters and the other uses English characters. But let's get started. So Xiangqi notation is different from Western chess notation. In Western chess, you'll have something like knight f3, and that would say that the knight moves to spot f3. And every square on a Western chessboard has a code, and you can figure out what the code for a particular square is based on the row and file numbers and letters. But in Xiangqi, everything is relative to which side of the board are you playing, or which player are you referring to. So the way Xiangqi notation works is based off of file numbers. And as I mentioned before, the files, or the vertical lines, are numbered 1 through 9. And 1 is always on the right-hand side, and 9 is always on the left-hand side. So for the opposing player, 1 is on their right-hand side, which would be your left-hand side, and 9 is on their left-hand side, which is your right-hand side. So all the numbers are reversed between the two players. The only one that matches up is the central file. It's called the central file, and that is the 5th file. In Xiangqi notation, to record a move, there are 4 characters that you'll write down to say what piece is being moved, which direction it's moving, and where did it move to. So the first character is the name of the piece. So for example, if we were to move this cannon, we would say C. The second character is the file that it is currently located on. So in this case, it's located on file 5. So we would say C5. And then you could say plus or minus, plus being forward, minus for backwards, or equals for sideways. So you say which direction does it go, forward, backwards, or sideways, followed by the final file number or the position. So for example, the most common opening in Xiangqi is the central cannon opening, C2 equals 5. We've got the cannon, or C, on file 2, moving sideways equals file 5. In the Chinese characters, it looks like this. We've got the cannon symbol, the Chinese character for 2, the character for sideways motion, and the character for 5. C2 sideways 5. Or in the Western notation, C2 equals 5. Now, if a piece moves forward, you don't indicate what file number it goes to because it's staying on the same file. You just indicate the number of spaces that it moves. So in this case, we've got cannon, or C, advances forward plus 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 spaces. C5 plus 4. Same thing for if a piece moves backwards. In this case, it's the cannon on the 5th file moves backwards 1 space. C5 minus 1. So cannon on 5th file retreats 1 space. Okay, that's great, but how do you notate pieces that have a little more complicated motions like the horse or the elephant? Well, let's look at that. It's actually the same exact thing. We say the horse, H, on file 2, so H2, advances forward, and that's because in this case, the horse is moving forward on the board, and then we say the resulting file number. So horse on file 2 advances to file 4. H2 plus 4. Same type of thing for the advisors. We've got an advisor on file 5, and we're going to advance it forward to file 4. So A5 plus 4. And that's to differentiate from, well, what if you moved your advisor backwards to file 4? You would write that as A5 minus 4. So A5 plus 4. Same thing for elephants. In this case, we've got B7 plus 5. And elephants are annotated with B. I suppose, I'm guessing that it's because elephants move kind of like bishops in Western chess, so elephants are annotated with the letter B. But we have an elephant on file 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, advancing forward, so moving in a forward direction across the board, to file 5. So B7 plus 5. For pawns, it's the same thing. P is for pawns. So the pawn on the 5th file, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. P5 plus 1, meaning it advances forward by 1 space. P5 plus 1. Now, what if you have 2 pieces of the same exact type on a file? How would you know which one you're referring to if you said chariot on file 9 moves to file 7, for example? Well, the way we notate this is we use a plus or minus in front of the letter for the piece to be moved. So in this case, chariots are denoted with the letter R because they're like rooks in Western chess. So we want to move the rook that is in the front forward by 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. And so to differentiate between moving the rook that's in front versus the one that's behind, we would say plus R plus 4. So plus rook in the front moves forward 4 spaces. And for the one that's behind, we would put a minus. So minus R equals means move sideways. The rook that's behind moves sideways to file 2. Minus R equals 2. All right, let's do some exercises with the notation. So we've got here C8 equals 5. In the Chinese characters version of the notation, it's cannon 8 sideways 5. So the cannon on file 8 moves sideways to file 5. So there's only one cannon on the board, so that's pretty easy. But we can just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Cannon on file 8 moves sideways to file 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that'd be this spot right here. So now we've got H7 plus 6, and that means the horse on file 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This horse on file 7, not this one, the horse on file 7 advances forward to file 6, which is this one right here. So advances forward to file 6. So the plus again means it moves forward, not backwards, which would be retreating back to this spot. The horse advances to file 6. Now let's try b3 plus 5. Remember, b is for the elephants, they're kind of like bishops. The elephant, we've got 2 elephants here. The elephant on file 3, 1, 2, 3, advances forward plus to file 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So advances forward to file 5. All right, minus r plus 2. And you can see in the Chinese characters here, this is the character for minus, or for the one that's behind. So the chariot that's behind advances forward by 2. Minus r plus 2. So we've got 2 chariots here. Minus r, 1, 2, forward 2. Now let's do an advisor, a4 plus 5. So that's our advisor on file 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, advancing forward to file 5, which is the one that's right next to it. Now k5 equals 4. K is for the king, or your general. So k5 to our general, which is on file 5, moves sideways, equals to file 4. Now let's do some practice with the notation for the black side. So again, it's the same exact thing because the notation is relative to the player. So on our right-hand side, because we're black now, we have the number 1, and all the way to the left, we have the number 9. And we see that looking at red from our perspective, they have number 1 on our left-hand side, going all the way to 9 on our right-hand side. So let's do h2 plus 3. And that's horse on file 2, 1, 2. h2 plus 3. So we're going to move over to file 3. And then let's do canon 8 equals 5. So we go over to our 8th file, canon 8, and move it sideways to file 5, which is right here. And that actually is putting a check on the general. And then c2 minus 5. So canon on file 2 goes backwards 5 spaces. Canon on file 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Backwards 5 spaces. And then b7 minus 5. And I forgot to mention, I'll mention it really quick. When notating between red and black in the Western notation like what we're using, the letters for pieces on red side are usually capitalized, and pieces for black are lowercase. So that's why we've got lowercase b7 minus 5. So b7 minus 5. So our elephant on file 7, which is this one here, retreats to file 5, right here. Now let's do c5 equals 9. So our canon on file 5 moves sideways to file 9. a6 minus 5. So advisor on file 6 retreats to file 5. k5 equals 4. So our general on file 5 moves sideways to file 4. k5 equals 4. p9 equals 8. So that would be our pawn on file 9. See, it's this one right here. Moves sideways to file 8. Remember, pawns after they cross the river can move sideways. So p9 equals 8. Now let's look at a famous checkmate example called the 13 moves of sacrificing the horse. And we're going to use the notation to recreate this checkmate. So c2 equals 5. So that's our canon on file 2, 1, 2, moves sideways to file 5. c2 equals 5. Black responds with c8 equals 5. And remember that this is relative. So we're looking for file 8 and file 5, but relative to the black side. So that starts on the left-hand side for us, looking from red's perspective. So file 8 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the canon on file 8 moves sideways, c8 equals 5. And 5 is always the central file. Now red moves h2 plus 3. That's a horse on file 2, 1, 2, advances forward to file 3. Black does the same thing, h8 plus 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. h8 plus 7, they advance forward from their perspective to file 7. r1 plus 1, let's move our rook or our chariot forward 1 space on file 1. So r1 on file 1 moves forward one space, R1 plus 1. Black responds with moving their chariot on file 9, which is our file 1, to file 8. So R9 equals 8, moving sideways. R1 equals 6, move our chariot on file 1, R1, sideways to file 6. So central file is 5, so this one right over here is file 6. R1 equals 6. R8 plus 6 on black side. Black moves their 8th file rook forward 6 spaces. So that's this one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We move our rook on file 6, R6 plus 7. We move our rook on file 6 forward 7 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Black says, I don't like what you're doing. I'm going to move my horse out, H2 plus 1. So that's the horse on file 2, 1, 2. Remember, on the left-hand side is 1 for the opposing player from our perspective. So H2 plus 1 doesn't mean they move forward 1 space. It means they move to file 1, which is right here. R9 plus 1, we move our chariot, our rook, on file 9 forward 1 space. So if our right-hand side is file 1, our left-hand side is file 9, move this rook forward 1 space. R9 plus 1. C2 plus 7, cannon on file 2, 1, 2, moves forward 7 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and that's actually capturing. C8 plus 5, that's our cannon on the 8th file. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Cannon on the 8th file, advancing forward 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. H7 minus 8. Black's horse on file 7 retreats to file 8. Now that that central pawn is unprotected because that horse moved away, let's take out the central pawn with our cannon, C5 plus 4. So that's cannon on file 5, moves forward 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that puts Black's general in a check. So they move their advisor A6 plus 5. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this advisor moves forward to file 5. R9 equals 6. Move our rook from file 9 to file 6. 9, 8, 7, 6. Black is getting scared. K5 equals 6. They're going to move their general from file 5 sideways to file 6. K5 equals 6. Plus R plus 1. So we see that on file 6 we have 2 chariots, 2 rooks, and the plus R means that we're going to be moving the one that's in front. And we're moving it forward 1 space. Plus R plus 1. So that's a crazy rook sacrifice right there. If this was Gotham chess, I'd be screaming the rook. But this is not Gotham chess. So A5 minus 4. So Black's advisor on file 5 moves backwards to file 4. R6 equals 4. So our chariot on file 6 moves sideways to file 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that puts the opposing general into check. So they try to block with their cannon. C5 equals 6. Cannon on file 5 moves sideways to file 6. Of course, we take it out with R4 plus 6, and that's our chariot on file 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, moves forward 6 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. R4 plus 6. Their general tries to sidestep the attack. K6 equals 5. Their general on file 6 moves sideways to file 5. And then we come in with the checkmate, C8 equals 5. Our cannon on file 8. If the left-hand side is 9, then this is file 8. Move sideways to file 5, which is the central file, producing a double cannon. And that concludes our introduction to how to play Chinese chess, how the board is laid out, how the pieces move, how they capture, the flying general rule, checkmates, and the notation. And that covers everything we need for students rank 1 and 2. Basic getting started, how to play Chinese chess. Next up for student level 3, we'll look at basic killing methods.